Howdy, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Just to let everybody know, obviously Monday is Christmas, so we won't be doing a show on Christmas Day. We'll be back on Wednesday. I believe we will have Eck back, but we'll keep our fingers crossed. But we will start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Russ.
Well, yesterday I was covering a Flyers game and saw the news from the Pat McAfee show that Yamamoto was signed by the Yankees, and it was Hideki Matsui that
Really?
Yep, put him over the top, Mike. And
this will teach you not to listen to anything that comes out of the mouth of anybody on the Pat McAfee show.
I looked at Anthony and I said, "This isn't real."
No.
Not that the Yankees couldn't get him, but just I knew it wasn't real, right? But then, like an hour later, we hear, "Hey, he's going to the Dodgers." And, my thought was, I knew the Mets as a team could miss out on him. That's fine. But the Mets have no backup plan. And actually, as we're learning today through Andy Martino and SNY, the Mets aren't even going to go after any high-end starters. So an article that I put up on sportsology.com actually in October that said David Stern needs to actually basically tell the Mets fan base that they're retooling this year and be honest with them. That's what he needs to tell them, because now they have a worry. Pete Alonso, he's going to look at this team and say, "Oh, I don't know. I mean, this team can't compete. They're not going to be a playoff team. Do I really want to sign there?" And so they've got some problems, and they don't look like a playoff team. I'll say that.
Well, Jan, I mean, the way it's turning out right now, David Stearns is the Chaim Bloom of Queens. I mean, that basically he's coming in there to bring his sort of cost-effective method to a team that spent $300 million last year. I mean, I think they were going after Yamamoto because he was 25, and if they could get him signed for a dozen years, they would spend the money. But, I mean, the backup plan is basically the plan that we thought was going to be in place, which is this is a rebuild year. So I don't think the Mets – this is any kind of big surprise.
No, I mean, honestly, this has been discussed for at least a month, if not 2 months already. So Martino putting the news out today is a regurgitation of what we knew already. They'd already said that they weren't going to probably be playing in the big pool market for the free agents. I don't think they're big believers in Blake Snell. I think that they believe that Jordan Montgomery is going to get overpaid fairly substantively based upon his World Series performance. Mm-hmm. Yamamoto was the guy they were going after, driven largely by Cone, right? Cone flew out to Japan to meet with him. He met with him and came to the East Coast. There's varying stories as to whether or not the Mets made the first offer, $325, and the Dodgers met. I mean, I think it's fairly evident that he wanted the Dodgers, right? Ohtani probably convinced him to a certain extent and helped lean him in that direction. I mean, the Yankees technically offered more AAV because it was only a 10-year deal. Right. The Mets were willing to give him the 5-year and the 8-year opt-outs that he desired in order to try to lure him here. I mean, I've read a lot of stuff, and I've been wanting to call an FAN and basically say, "You dumb SOBs, just shut up because you have your heads up your rear ends. You know what you're talking about."
But Jan, one thing though, I would say 3/4 of the fan base doesn't believe that they're not going to spend money this offseason.
Okay. They'll spend money.
You see the outrage online. You do. I get what you're saying. Some of it's a regurgitation, but I don't think the fans believed it at the beginning. And
to quote Bob Dylan, "A hard rain's gonna fall."
They're going to sign guys to 1- and 2-year deals, and hopefully the plan was always, where the free agent market is much bigger next year and the year after, as of right now, is to potentially be in the market. Do I like it? No.
But that's not what David Stern said either. He never laid that out like that.
It was laid out before he kind of joined. There was the whispers. Martino mentioned it.
Whispers. See, that's the difference.
Como mentioned it. They're not going to. First of all, nobody's going to.
But the GM needs to mention it to the fans. That's the problem. He has not said a word about this.
He won't, though. He won't.
He won't.
I'm telling you, he won't.
He's going to find that this is going to be this worst season of a GM in Major League Baseball. He's going to have the worst season he's ever had because he's not being honest with a fan base that will show up to games if they just know what the plan is. but most of the fans don't know the plan.
Well, just let me just switch to the other one of the other boroughs, and then we'll talk hockey.
Yeah, the one that really wanted him badly.
The one that really wanted him badly and offered him a lot of money, and he decided to go to the Dodgers. And that that I understand that. I mean, he's getting $27 million a year. I mean, the one thing I would be scared about with when it comes to Yamamoto, and I would be just as scared if he had signed with the Yankees, is the guy's never pitched in North America, and you don't know what he's going to be. But from every report, he's going to be phenomenal. But now I wonder what the plan B is for the Yankees. I don't know if they're going to overpay for Jordan Montgomery because they know what Jordan Montgomery is. The Jordan Montgomery that pitched in St. Louis and Texas was not the Jordan Montgomery that pitched with the Yankees. So do they go after Snell? Maybe if he takes maybe 4 years, but I mean, what is he? I think he's 31, something like that.
31, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to give that kind of guy too many years. I mean, do they go back to Frankie Montas? I mean, it's a big dramatic step down.
People are talking about Snell. He is a Cy Young Award winner.
I'm not saying he's not.
Go more than 5 innings sometimes, but he's still a Cy Young Award winner.
I get
really
that.
Well in his career.
Mike, the big question is it's Garrett Cole and then who? Right.
Right.
That's the problem with the Yankees, which is why Yamamoto made a ton of sense. And the Yankees are getting vilified by their fan base for not matching the 325. Now, whether or not they had the higher AAV, that doesn't seem to drive the fan base. They're going, why the heck can we go to 325?
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the one thing, Jen, that's really been cloudy for all the teams. We don't know which team or all the teams, if they all had a $50 million bonus up front.
Right. No,
we don't know that.
Correct.
Peter, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, if he's so important, why wouldn't the Yankees or the Mets take a play right out of what the Dodgers did with the same kind of contract? Why wouldn't
the Mets offered him 12 years, 325? They offered him the 5 and the 8 year opt outs. The argument you're getting from Met fans is, why didn't Cone go 350? Why didn't Cone go 375? And my argument is if we don't know if the Mets were the first offer and the Dodgers met that offer. From what it seems like is they never went back to the Mets and offered them the opportunity to do it. So the Mets may have been the leader in terms of throwing out that number. And it may have been a case where they went to Cone and said, okay, we want 350. He said, fine, I'll give you 350. They go back to the Dodgers and the Dodgers go, okay, we'll match it. Remember, they get $23 million per year that's being deferred off the Ohtani contract, right, which is being earmarked and utilized here, which, by the way, the CBA last year, the Players Association went to the owners and said, are you sure you want this clause in there where there's unlimited deferment? And they went, yeah, let's leave it in there. And now every owner is complaining and whining, going, oh, my God, I can't believe we did this. How stupid can we be?
No, but Peter has a point. Let's not act like the Mets have a salary cap, because they don't, and they've shown that they don't. And let's not act like the Mets couldn't have given him a deferred deal, even though the Dodgers did not give him a deferred deal. Like Peter said, the Mets could have given him a $400 million deferred deal if he wanted, and he might have taken that. But we don't know, because when you're the first bidder, it's like the same thing on anything else. When you're going to bid on a house, you should give your best bid. And if you don't think that bid's going to blow it out of the water, then you're probably not getting the house.
And let's not say the Yankees were pinching pennies, because in the end, they offered the most per year. I don't know what the outs were. If they had
I have a feeling the bonus is the key here. And that's what we're not hearing about. And I don't know if the Mets gave a $50 million bonus.
We don't know. Well, I'm sure it'll come out at some point in time, though.
Yes, I'm sure. And it'll be interesting to see now, because the dominoes of all the pitching will start to fall now that Yamamoto's off the board. So, let's get started. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Friday, December 22nd, 2023.
I'm Pete Tessier, joining in from sunny and beautiful Vancouver, BC.
Oh, boy.
I'm Jan Levine. I was expecting Pete to say I'm calling in and freezing my rear end off in Winnipeg right now.
I'm Russ Cohen, and you're not.
Thanks, Chevy.
And I'm Michael Agello, fresh from a 9-3 thrashing of the Toronto Maple Leafs on the hands of the Buffalo Sabres. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. And I just will say one thing about Eastern Conference before we start with the West. If you wanted to start the troll job roll between Buffalo and Toronto, which really has not taken place other than with like fans, but organizationally, last night was the beginning when, with about a minute and a half left to go in the third period, the Buffalo game ops staff played You Make My Dreams Come True by Hall & Oates, which is the hated goal song of
Tremendous song. Love that song.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, Russ. I'm sure they're going to play that at your funeral. But
Wow.
I guess they'll play Sarah McLachlan at yours.
Is that what all of us are going to be thinking when Russ is gone? You make my dreams come true. Is that what Mike is doing here?
Exactly. But I really hope that the Leafs game ops, when the Leafs are up 6-2 on the Sabres the next time they play, if they ever get up 6-2 on the Sabres, because they never play that well against them, that they play the Sabre dance. That would be perfect. Start the troll war. I love that stuff going. That's back and forth. It's beautiful. Let's do it.
You know, I totally agree with you, Mike. And game ops around the league, like sometimes you see it on social media, and I think the one that really stands out to me is back in 2012 when the LA Kings Twitter account tweeted out for everyone else and everyone outside of Vancouver or in Canada outside of Vancouver, you're welcome, right? When they, that stuff's fun when it's clever.
Yeah.
Like it's got you, and I think a lot of that should be done with game staff, event staff and stuff, because it makes things fun. It gets fans engaged, and there's not enough of that in hockey.
Right.
And it really takes clever people thinking ahead of the game and planning it. It can't be mean. It's got to be fun. And if it's clever, it'll be and fun. You get a lot of bandwidth out of that, and it's good. It's good for fan bases.
The record-setting Buffalo Sabres.
Yes,
first team since 1983 to give up 9 goals in one game, only to turn around the next game and score at least 9. So only took 40 years for it to happen again.
Yeah. All right, let's start with the Western Conference, and we can go through a couple of these teams pretty quickly, because short of trading players at the deadline, I don't think much is going to be accomplished with the San Jose Sharks and with the Chicago Blackhawks. Obviously, with the Blackhawks, their intent here is, play Connor Bedard, protect Connor Bedard. He's right now, I'd say, the leader for the Calder Trophy. No great bulletin there. I know that they're probably going to want to surround him with some more veteran players after Corey Perry's situation. They did add Beauvillier, but they really need to have a support structure around him. But, anybody who's a pending free agent, they're probably going to deal before March the 8th. Same with San Jose. I wrote a piece for Full Press where, I could see a Kakko Kakkonen be one of the goalies that's moved before the deadline for a team that needs goaltending help. They have a few other unrestricted free agents, but guys, I don't see how anybody takes Peter, I don't see if anybody takes a guy like Mark-Edward Vlasic, who I think is clearly over the hill, and I think he's got 3 years left at over $7 million. Nobody, not even at 50%, nobody is taking that contract off of their hands.
No, not without retained and yeah.
Well, it would have to be filtered through a third team to make it.
Well, yeah, and I think one of the things that I think everyone's got to look at right now when it comes to this stuff is look at the current cap space, projected cap space. This is who has all the cap space: Chicago, Nashville, Anaheim, Buffalo, Arizona, Columbus, Detroit, Carolina. The teams who need people are not the teams of cap space.
Right.
And that's a big problem.
And those teams are going to make it work. Those teams are going to be brokers at the deadline. They're going to be, okay, we'll take this guy. As long as they're rentals. Now, San Jose, they've got LeBanc, they've got Hoffman, they've got Kessler, who are all UFAs. LeBanc has taken a dramatic step back recently, Russ. I don't know. A couple years ago, I thought he was a really good player, and he's not going in a positive track right now. But somebody at 50% might take
he's still a good power play guy, and he does have skill. I think if you put him in the right spot, you might be able to get a little more out of him. But
Duclair is the one that I think a lot of people.
Yeah, of course. I mean, Duclair scored a nice goal last night. The speed's there. He's got speed. He could possibly score. He's gonna be wanted by teams.
Now, the worst highlight of the night last night was the injury to Leo Carlson, Russ. And I mean, we've been seeing how, as an 18-year-old, he's been playing pretty well. They were spoon feeding him minutes. He had his leg rolled up by Mackenzie Weegar. I don't think it was purposeful.
No.
But, I haven't heard any kind of initial prognosis, but it didn't look good. I mean, I hope it's only a hyperextension, maybe because
I think that's the best case scenario, honestly.
Yeah, but I mean, he's gonna miss significant time, and that's a shame. But Anaheim, Jan, I mean, right now, 24 points, 12-20 and 12-20-0. I continue as we go forward with the Ducks. The name of John Gibson and whether he gets traded. I mean, until he gets traded, this is going to continue to get mentioned because they're a rebuilding team, and it just seems a waste to have that kind of goaltender on a rebuilding team. But
No, I don't think he's going to get mentioned as much this year. I just think because he hasn't been traded, doesn't seem to want to be traded, and has a lot of term, I don't think he's going to end up being talked about that much.
I don't know, because he kind of ripped the team to a certain extent about a year ago, where it made it seem like he really wanted out, right? I mean, that's kind of what the word that came out. And I mean,
maybe before they got Carlson,
it's kind of like America held hostage with Gibson. Is he actually going to get traded or not, right? I mean, they've made do. Trevor Zegras came back, as we talked about. He rushed to come back after signing his deal, which should have been signed ages ago. He went from 0 to 60 without stopping in the middle, strained the groin muscle, and he's been out basically ever since like the first or second week of the season. Jamie Drysdale missed over 2 months. He just came back. Right. Carlson got hurt yesterday. McTavish has missed the last 7 games, which has had a major impact on Ryan Strome, who's built up a nice chemistry with him. So there are good pieces there, and there are lots of young, solid pieces, which is why you can understand Gibson maybe wanting to hang around, but you can also understand why Pat Verbeek and Anaheim may want to get rid of him, because I think they do view Lucas Dostal as their goalie of the future.
Right.
And if they are going to play the young
not
kid,
yet, though. Not yet.
Right.
No,
but the question is, if Gibson keeps scuffling, does that have an impact on his net value? Or a team's going to keep looking past and go, he's in a bad situation, so we're still going to give, 100% on the dollar as opposed to taking a discount to take him on board.
I mean, Peter, honestly, if I'm a team like Edmonton or a team like Carolina or a team like New Jersey, who clearly I think is a goaltender away from being either a playoff team or being a Stanley Cup contender, not to say I'm going to open up the bank, my bank account and say, take me, I'm yours. But I mean, I'm going after a goaltender like that because that's a difference maker for those teams.
Well, it is. And remember, I think, we get hung up on you've got to find a Vezina caliber goalie to move forward. What you really need is someone who can consistently just be league average.
Right.
Like you plug that hole and then focus on the other stuff. If you end up getting a goalie who goes on a hot streak, that's fantastic. But you want to avoid people who are known for going on dismal cold streaks, right? And so if you can find that league average, you're giving yourself something you can focus away from now. And I think there's some upside in that. If you look at it just from risk management perspective of you put too much tension between the pipes, you end up having like tire fires of problems like Edmonton did. As soon as they started getting league average and some stability, the attention's off. How many times have the Leafs gone through this, right? And it becomes a snowball that just builds up until it explodes and takes out a whole bunch of people with it.
Yeah,
I think to your point though, Mike, to your question, there's going to be, if there's a belief you can get league average and some stability there's going to be a market.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Carolina, I mean, okay, there are some people who still believe in Kochetkov, but he hasn't shown it yet. Anderson's out. Ronta's in the minors. And, right now, league average for them would probably have them at the top of close to the top of the Metro Division. New Jersey would probably be in a playoff spot. Toronto would probably be leading the Atlantic. I mean, with their goaltending situation, Edmonton would probably be in a playoff spot because, Jack Campbell just bled points. So,
right, but there's one thing that none of these teams want to do, and that's give up big assets for a goalie. They don't.
Well,
everybody's making do. Like Carolina, they're making do. They decided they'll bring up their guy. They'll wait a month for Freddie. And they'll do that. Nobody wants to make this big goalie deal. Right
that
now.
Organization does not believe in goaltenders.
No, but Edmonton doesn't either. Edmonton's not going to make a big goalie deal now either.
Clearly, it's been a raging success for both.
I'm not saying it's been. I'm just telling you, the big goalie deal out there that's that gets talked about is not really the way. Now at the draft next year, when the cap goes up, maybe you will see a big goalie deal at the draft. But right now, nobody wants to lay out those assets.
If there is a big goalie deal that comes through, and I'm not saying I don't know what it would be. It's probably bigger than just a goalie because of the cap situation.
It is definitely
It then becomes a much more complex.
You're talking about 4 or 5 player deal at that point, and a lot of money moving around, maybe a third team, and I just don't know right now when So let's go back to Edmonton. They are 7 points out of the wild card spot.
They are 7 points out. Yes,
they're 7-3-0 in the last 10 games.
Yeah,
right.
We're now coming out of Christmas. You get the January doldrums, right? The teams that don't fall into the January doldrums and kind of get through, and if Edmonton can hold on to a 700 for the next month, are they back in it? I don't know if they can. That's going to be a teller, and I think they're going to be the ones who are potentially does pressure get put on Holland that it's so great because of the colossal mess he's in?
I think
they have to do it, right?
I think they've dug themselves already too big of a hole. I mean, they won 7 in a row, and they're still 7 points out of a playoff spot. Now they have a couple games in hand on Arizona, and I don't think Arizona is the team.
I'm not worried about Arizona.
Yeah, no, but I do think that Minnesota and Calgary or St. Louis are teams that are in between them and the promised land are going to have something to say about it. So, I mean, right now, talking about Edmonton, Jack Campbell is a disaster. He's gone down to AHL Bakersfield. Maybe right now it doesn't look like he's coming back. Calvin Pickard has won 3 of his last 4 starts. So at least they're getting solid backup work out of him. Skinner has sort of stabilized, but the problem is that October and early to mid-November before Woodcroft got fired has dug them a cavernous hole. And Jan, they're playing the Rangers tonight, and the Rangers are playing Quick against them. And probably because Quick knows that team and has played against that team when he was a member of the Kings. I mean, that's a tough matchup for the Rangers, but it's an even tougher matchup for the Oilers.
Yeah, coming off the back-to-back yesterday. I mean, and yesterday's game against New Jersey was kind of schizophrenic. I mean, Edmonton got off to a huge start right away, 24 seconds in McLeod start. They had a 2-zip lead early, and then all of a sudden, all the wheels came off, and they ended up trailing basically going into the third. And it's almost like somebody lit a fire on them in the locker room, and they came out and just basically blitzed Jersey in the third period, made Vanacek look less than ordinary, made Luke Hughes look his age, made Kevin Ball look his age, and McDavid had a great goal. Draisaitl had a good goal. They got production and a goal from Adam Ernie. They got another goal from McLeod, and all of a sudden it's 4 goals, and they got a win. So yeah, it's a tough matchup. They're on their East Coast swing, but as you said, Mike, I mean, Edmonton has finally found their footing. Now, whether or not Skinner is the guy to be moving forward remains to be seen, but he certainly is going to get the opportunity now to be that guy, right? And I think everybody's kind of looking at look what happened with Vegas last year, right? Aiden Hill stepped in, and everybody thought it was first. Obviously they had Fleury years ago. Then it was Leonard potentially, and then it became Logan Thompson was actually the guy carrying the load.
Right,
and he got hurt, and it's like, oh crap, what do we do now? We'll just take Aiden Hill in net, and Hill ran with the job and basically carried him to the cup. I mean, he was brilliant during the run.
And Laurent Brossois.
Yeah, the only difference is they were able to do it because they have forwards that will actually play defense, and they have a good defense. Most of these teams that we're talking about, the defense isn't what it used to be or good at all, and it's harder then. It makes it harder. That's why Edmonton's going to have another losing streak. And so, there's going to be a point where they're going to be like, hey, we're 6 points out or 9 points out, but it could be further than that in reality.
Peter's right. I mean, they're probably going to have to play 700 hockey the rest of the way just to catch up. And that's near impossible.
Yeah, but if you go to the trade deadline, you're 3 points back. You're within striking distance, right? All they need to do is kind of stay within striking distance where now the hot streak gets them to the point where they get into the playoffs.
Well, it depends. Even that depends, Jen. It depends how many teams you have to jump and how often you play those teams. that is going to matter too. You have to do the math.
And then you have to rely on a team having a catastrophic injury maybe for you to catch up to somebody. Now, okay, so
Mike always thinks about the
well, no, I mean, it's just a reality, Russ. It happens.
It doesn't have to be a catastrophic injury. You could just, I mean.
Well, hey, there's a lot of teams with injuries right now.
Yeah.
And key players. And and I'll talk about Winnipeg later. I mean, they're doing some extraordinary work weathering losing who was at the point chasing the top of the goal scoring with Kyle Connor. And it happened and you talked about Vegas and then having their goaltending last year and winning the cup. If you've got to just get anyone in between the pipes and you're looking at who's in front of you, you're taking Vegas 12 times out of 10 over what Edmonton is. Sure. It's just, and the reason simply is that even if you don't believe in the finer nuances of structure and everything and how it affects shot quality and all that thing, I don't want to get into a big argument about that, but you've got the ability on Vegas's roster to make adjustments and do things to compensate for that just don't exist in Edmonton.
Yeah, Vegas is the prototypical definition of big boy hockey. Big defenseman, but smart and defensively sound. And Edmonton is playing throttle wide open hockey with McDavid and Draisaitl. And I don't blame them because that's all they got. Because if they try to play defense, they suck.
Here, let me throw a grenade into the mix here. And I've always been a contrarian about McDavid because I think what if you had to line up a whole bunch of historical greats, and I'm not going to name names, you can pick your greats. I don't pick McDavid in my top 3 because I haven't seen McDavid adjust himself, and here's the grenade, to compensate for what's going on with his team and diversify his game. Mm-hmm. It's get me the puck and let me wheel it up. Now, he's insane. He's absolutely insane. He's an all-world talent. He's generational. I'm not taking away from that. But I want to see the rest of McDavid to say, lead his team back into their defensive end and start taking responsibility for the hot mess.
I'll give you a perfect comparison. If you ask me a guy who I would want in the Western Conference instead of him, give me Nathan McKinnon every day and Tuesday, right? Because you look at what McKinnon, first of all, he's on a 17-game point streak, but the physical play that he has, the attention to detail in his own defensive zone is what makes him stand out also. He is a 200-foot player, and he always has been, and he's gotten better as time has worn on.
And I'll give you a historical comparative, and I think McDavid is a much better offensive player than this player that I'm going to compare him to. But Steve Yzerman had a come-to-Jesus moment in Detroit. He was an unbelievable offensive player, and at a certain point, he realized, I've got to play more two-way hockey if we're ever going to win a Stanley Cup. And when they won those consecutive cups in 97 and 98, it was because of, primarily because I know they had a great team around them, but it was because of Yzerman, and because that team was uber talented in 93 and 94 and 95. They got eliminated in the first round by Toronto and San Jose in 93 and 94, and they lost in the cup final to New Jersey in 95. The Yzerman, when he adjusted the way he approached the game, that was the key to that team winning.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say, McDavid's come a long way in being a better leader, but does he make a lot of players around him better? No, and that's where I get what Peter's saying.
And we can move on. But John, I totally agree with you. Your point, and you brought up McKinnon. I'm not going to say Nathan McKinnon is a better player, but for the way, in terms of skills and way is, but for the way the NHL, the way teams are finding success in the NHL now, I need McKinnon before I need McDavid. I agree with you.
Now
the game has changed.
Now, right now, I'm going to take the 2 wildcard teams and the 4 teams that are closest to them as a block of 6. And it's Nashville, 38 points. Arizona, 36 points. The Blues, 33. Calgary, 33. Minnesota, 32. Seattle, 31. So that's a range of 7 points with 6 teams fighting over 2 spots. Right now I have my ideas who I think the 2 will be from that group, but let's take it. Nashville, Arizona, St. Louis, Calgary, Minnesota, Seattle. who do you think the 2 in that 6 will be, Jan?
I'll definitely say Minnesota is one of them. Personally, I think they're going to have the goaltending. I think Gustafsson has finally gotten his game back in gear. I think Fleury's fine as a backup, and if they ever need it, Wallstedt's obviously down in the minors in case they have to go to him.
Yeah,
they've gotten a new number 1 center in Marco Rossi, who's centering Kaprizov, and they've shown great chemistry. And I think defensively, the play of Brock Faber this year has been a pleasant surprise for them. As good as he is, I don't realize they thought he was this good, but he's phenomenal. The other 5, I'm actually going to go out on a limb, and I'm actually going to say Seattle, because I don't think Matty Beniers can be as bad as he's been so far. And if he ever finds his game, he showed last year that he can help carry a team down the stretch a little bit. So again, look, I think Calgary's got a shot. I think Arizona, St. Louis, all those guys are going to be in the mix. Yeah. I'm going on a limb. Look, Joey Decor's been phenomenal. Eventually, Grubauer is going to come back, and the player Decor's been so good that now if you put the 2 of those guys together, all of a sudden Seattle's got a pretty nice goaltending situation, which some of the other teams may not have.
Now, okay, I'll just say this because I'll give mine last, but I'm wiping one team off the list already. Even
who could that be?
Well, no, it's Calgary.
I was going to stick. I thought you were going to Arizona, honestly.
No. It's Calgary because they're going to trade Hannafin. Yeah. They're going to trade Tanev, and they're going to trade Lindholm. There's nothing, even if they're in the race, Peter, they're going to trade those guys. So I don't think that they'll survive and make the playoffs without them, even if they get returns for them. I don't think that's the case. But okay, of that 6, who do you think are the 2 that will make it?
I was with Jan on Minnesota.
Yeah,
I think they're going to figure some things out here and come through. I was like you. I said Calgary's going to start selling. I think there's and not just because maybe they're not where they thought they'd be. I think it's got a whole bunch to do with other business factors around the team, and new GM. It didn't happen. Off you go. I'm torn. I wanted to say the Kraken, but I'm curious if St. Louis sort of finds a way.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason I say that is because the Kraken, the Blues have 2 games in hand. They're only 2 points ahead. But are they going to continue to get that? Will they find the coach bounce, right? Will they find that part and keep going? I think I haven't looked at anyone's schedule, what comes down the pipe, but I know, for instance, I think like Vancouver, I think plays Vegas like 4 more times or something in the final, like in a 2-week, like a 3-week period near the end. There's going to be a bunch of that's going to affect things. And I haven't gone forward enough to look at the schedule, but there's going to be some very interesting schedule balances that hit. And if you end up having to play a rival team where it's those 4-point games, right, and they're your kryptonite, it could be very interesting. Like if you're a fan of those in those bubble 6, you could have a lot of fun, like, and a lot of sweaty moments in terms of chasing out. But yeah, I'm going to go St. Louis and Minnesota.
Okay, Russ. Okay. You give me your 2 first. So it's Nashville, Arizona, St. Louis, Calgary, Minnesota, Seattle.
Yeah, I'm going to go St. Louis, Minnesota. I think the Kings knew exactly what Brock Faber was. He was a star. I think they knew it. I knew it way back. But I think the issue was they really needed Kevin Fiala, so they had to give up something to get something. So I think that was just they have an embarrassment of riches on the blue line.
Heavy price, Fiala and a number 1.
Yeah, but I mean, again, look what Fiala's done for them.
Number 1, yeah.
So I mean, I don't have a problem with that. I do think at some point they could trade Fleury too and get something to fortify themselves even more.
Yeah.
If they're going to stick with Gustafsson like it looks like they are. So because it seems like that's part of the plan, even though I said the plan sucks. I like the Blues. I think Kyrou is a lot better now after all that exorcism happened. He's back scoring. Thomas looks better. Binnington's been pretty good. I think Binnington can get through this season. You can make any faces. Toronto would kill for Jordan Binnington. They don't even have a goalie close to that quality.
Yeah, they need an enforcer really bad, Russ.
Listen, they don't have a goalie close to that quality. I think Binnington will be fine and get through. I don't think Seattle, because I think the whole thing with the Winter Classic and stuff will probably draw from them. I don't think Hackstall will do what Jan said, even though it's logical that the Cord's done so well, because Hackstall tends to go back and use the goalie that he likes. So I'd be surprised if the Cord, became the number one or even the 1A, but I like the Cord. I think he's capable, but so that's the reason I don't think Seattle.
All right, so I agree. Let's across the board. I agree with Minnesota. I mean, the only concern with Minnesota is Spurgeon has been hurt twice with them. I think they need him desperately to be healthy for them to really get into the playoff race and stay in the playoff race. So I think they can do it. It's just I don't know. I haven't heard any kind of update. I know because he was out for a while and he came back, then he got hurt again. So I'll mention a team that nobody's mentioned, and you know what the thing is? I've seen them a couple times. They're not overly talented, but they just seem to win, and it's Nashville. They're 8-2 in the last 10 games, and Saros has been phenomenal for them. And I'm not a big Saros guy, but I find flaws in like all the other teams. Seattle, I mean, they lost their goaltending. Decord has played well. I just don't know. Beniers is clearly having a sophomore slump. Calgary's going to sell off, like I said. The Blues, I mean, part of the reason why Berube got fired was because of the mediocrity of their goaltending. Their defense hasn't been good either. So
you know what the problem with Nashville is, though, Mike? I did just see him last night.
They're not very deep. They're not very deep.
Right. Offensively, they're not deep at all.
Right.
And look, Philip Tomasino had his best game of the year. Maybe he even gets sparked, but they just don't have a lot of offense.
Yeah, they're a one-line team. They have O'Reilly playing with Forrest.
They play tough. I could see them keeping the score close.
Yep.
Saros is talented, although not in the Stanley Cup, but he's talented otherwise. And I just think they're going to come up short. I don't think they're built.
They're going to have Barry Trotz is going to have to make a deal for some offense if they're going to make the playoffs, but they have the cap space to do it. And they do have assets, so it's not.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to trade. I think, honestly, I think Trotz is sort of treating the season like, let's just see what we can do. But I don't think he's going to give up any kind of major assets because they need futures. They don't have a lot of futures on this team.
No, but what I'm saying is if they're close at the deadline and they can pick up and I'll just use an example, somebody like Victor Olofsson from the Sabres, who's a scorer, but they clearly want to get rid of him and move on from him because he's a almost $5 million player and he's a healthy scratch right now. That's somebody who they might, that would invigorate their power play.
No, I get it, but they can't even afford to give up a second round pick. Nashville has been a lousy drafting team for, I want to say 3 or 4 years now. And you could see that their cupboard is not full at all. And they need as many picks as they can get.
All right. So Central Division right now, it's extremely close. Dallas at 42, Colorado at 42, and Winnipeg at 41. Dallas has got their injury issues. Ottinger is out. They said they were encouraged that it wasn't something severe, but it sounded like it's a week-to-week thing with the groin. I believe it was a groin injury so they're gonna have to ride Wedgwood and Matthew Murray, not Matt Murray, but Matthew Murray as their goaltending for a little while. But they have a good defense and a good offense in front of them, so they can probably weather that for a month until Ottinger gets back. Colorado, I think they need a number 2 center badly.
I do have an update on Colorado, Mike. Sam Girard's out of the program, so he's practicing now with them. That's massive for them.
Yes, to get him back because their defense is good right now with Makar and Taves and Byram and Manson, and now you add Girard into that, and they probably have next to the Rangers or a couple other teams the best.
They got to give Georgiev a little rest. That's what they need.
Yeah, well, please. Well, Prosvetov is not that good, so it costs them it bleeds them points when they play him. And Peter with Winnipeg, 41 points. You mentioned they lost Connor in 6 to 8 weeks, but they're keeping their head above water.
Yeah, I'll give Bonus some credit. He did something that I don't think many expected him to do. And Scheifele and Ehlers have never worked well together. But with Gabe Velarde on that line, it might be arguably one of the top 3. Some are saying the best line in hockey. I wouldn't go that far. Too
but it's
early
a good
for
line.
That. It's a top 3 line right now. Like they are. Velarde is a magician at getting open. And I don't know, I don't know where this has all come from, but he's come back. He's fitting in very well, and he
He
seems
had a
very,
lot of injuries, Peter. He always had the talent.
yeah.
He started showing the talent last year when he's finally was past the injuries.
Mhm.
So it's not that surprising, but it's nice to see. It's really nice to see.
And just I think somehow the Jets have shored up some of their defensive issues because they haven't allowed more than 3 goals in a game in 18 straight games.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm the
odd.
only one on the panel that picked them for the playoffs. I just want to point
Yeah,
that out.
I did not have them as a playoff team.
No,
This year.
okay, and Russ did, but the thing was, everybody at that point thought that Scheifele and Hellebuck were going to be traded.
Yeah,
Once
So-
they
exactly.
resigned, then we
Man,
changed
now that
our
they
mind.
signed-
Yeah.
We did in the pre-show. We changed our mind a little bit because we said, big thing we said is the lack of having that weigh over you during the course of a season
Right.
is hard to measure, but it has a massive impact on times on your performance, which is what we've seen.
So you signed those two guys, and then you made a hockey deal with the Kings that turned out good for both teams.
Yeah,
Dubois ended up going where he wanted to go, signed the long-term deal,
Yep.
and they get Iafallo and Velarde and who was the other?
Kapari.
Kapari.
Who's
Yeah.
injured right now.
Right, but they got three
He's got
pieces
some
for one.
talent too.
Yeah, they got 3 pieces for one, and that and Anita Ryder signed, as Esmir said in the chat. Anita Ryder signed an extension too, so that everything is not coming up roses in Winnipeg, but it's
No, but bonus is a big thing. Like, I don't think people realize how good he is in the room. Like, he is a well-respected.
he had a
Players love this guy.
he had a positive effect in Dallas. So he was one of the reasons that they got to the final that year, and he's having a very similar effect with Winnipeg. Now, I don't know who's going to win this division because everybody's got now with Colorado. I would say Colorado is favored, and if Colorado gets a number 2 center, and I know Pierre LeBrun reported on Insider Trading yesterday that he was talking about Elias Lindholm, and he shock, throw a dart against the wall. Boston and Colorado, who are looking for center help, those are the 2 teams. I think it's going to be a bidding war on those 2 teams to get Lindholm, and he's going to be a difference maker with either one of those teams.
Yeah, he totally will be. If you look at who wins the division, I would have to say Dallas just seems to have the Jets number. So I'm gonna say when you go head to head and you look at those games, Dallas is probably going to take them, and I think it's going to come down to Dallas and Colorado if they can, barring any other.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I think that's the way it's going to go. I think they'll pull ahead. The Jets are on a real big goaltending and shooting percentage run right now, right behind Vancouver, like a PDO run, right? Like I don't think it's sustainable. Like they're running a 104 right now combined.
Jesus.
Like I just don't see it happening. But so in that case, being realistic about it, I do see I think it's going to be Dallas coming out on top there, particularly if they add in a Hanifin. The question for Calgary is do they want to trade within their conference?
I don't see it. I don't think. Well, let's just say this: the most value for Hanifin is to trade him to the East to a team that might have a chance to sign him, because clearly he doesn't want to stay in Canada, and it's from all the reports he wants to go, if not Boston, to a northeastern place like New Jersey or Washington or something like. He wants to go there. So I think if you're Calgary, you get more in that deal with the possibility of that guy signing there and either getting a conditional pick or a better return. So
was it Hanifin or Lindholm you were talking about? I think you're talking about Lindholm.
Hanifin is Northeast. Lindholm, I think, he's going to the team that needs a center.
Colorado,
Boston.
in my opinion. They can't survive with Ryan Johansson. Ryan Johansson is their number 2. It's not worked. I think you put Lindholm on Colorado, and Dallas goes, we better make a deal ASAP, because as good as we are, they become infinitely harder to play against if Colorado gets a guy like Lindholm as their 2C.
Right. I think Colorado wins the division and gets them, because you look at it, McKinnon's ranked 2nd in the league, Rantanen 7th, and Cale Makar ranked 11th in the league in scoring. Like, nobody has that. Nobody.
And finally, we'll look at the Pacific, and where you are, Peter. Vancouver has just had a season for the ages. I mean, everything has gone right. Demko has been fantastic. Quinn Hughes is probably the leader for the Norris. Pedersen's going on I think he's on 100-point pace. JT Miller's playing great. I mean, everything is going right for them.
Not everything. There's
Well,
one little piece of the puzzle.
almost
One little
everything.
piece of the puzzle that hasn't panned out like they expected so far. Mr. Kuzmenko has not panned out this year like they expected.
Yeah, they gave him too much money. They did.
Yeah, but Jan, the fact that they're doing as great as they're doing.
I'm not disagreeing. I mean, if you would have told them that Brock Besser was scoring like this, they all would have looked at you like you had a third head. I mean, they would have like, wait, I'm sorry, he's doing what?
Yeah. Brock Besser is rookie Brock back. He wanted out of Vancouver last year.
Right.
Like whatever Tocchet has done, and no one seems to know what. He's done something that's worked with the mishmash that's gone through that organization for the last few years.
He's getting.
I don't think any of the hardcore in Vancouver. I don't think a lot of the real, true, tight observers of that club really are giving Patrick Allen a lot of credit for things and saying he's moved things in the right way. I don't think they would go that far to say it. And I think they'd begrudgingly say maybe it's okay now. But, no one saw this coming out of Vancouver.
No, I will say this. I think with the talent base they have, those guys that we always talk about, Tocchet is a basic guy with a basic message. He was a scorer, so he understands what to let scorers do. And because I listened to some of his speeches, and they're very simple. And he doesn't really, he doesn't overly berate these guys. No. He doesn't, and he gives good post game, insightful post game. Yeah. So the media is happy with him. And honestly, I just think it's just like he's straightforward and basic, and that's what they needed.
He got the most anybody could possibly get out of an Arizona team that didn't have a lot of talent when he was head coach there. And remember when he was an assistant in Pittsburgh, he was, they called him the Kessel Whisperer because he actually related to Phil Kessel in some way and got the most out of him.
Yeah, he's a good communicator. He really is.
Now, the weirdest thing here, and we'll finish on this, the weirdest is the Los Angeles Kings because they're 13-1-1 on the road and they're under 500 at home. So if they were just basic at home, they'd be leading this division by 4 or 5 points. And instead, they're 7 points behind Vancouver and Vegas. I mean, I don't know. Again, the one thing about them right now the only thing that makes me question them is their goaltending. And I know Talbot's had a great year right now, but I don't know whether they can get an advance in the playoffs with Cam Talbot and Phoenix Copley as their goaltending. They're probably going to try.
Their defensive structure, the way they do it, and they get the puck out with the skaters they have, has been working. The thing is, Mike, they also have like 4 games in hand on teams chasing them.
Right.
So they're in a really good spot. Actually, if they do start playing better at home, none of these teams we talked about will make the playoffs because the Kings will take that last spot and everything's going to stay the way it is. People are probably hoping that the Kings trip up somewhere because otherwise there's not that much hope to get a playoff spot in the West if you're one of those outside teams.
Well, right now, they're in third place with 40 points, and in their division, the next closest team is Calgary at 33. So they have a 7-point lead. They have an 11-point lead on Edmonton. Good luck. Not happening. So, okay. So we'll end it there. We'll be back on Wednesday. For all our viewers, we wish you a Merry Christmas. And we will be back. Let's see. Well, the Wednesday will be after Boxing Day. So send your presents to Mike Agello. Oh, no, never mind. Okay. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, boxing gloves. Send them.
Yeah. No coal. No
lump of coal.
No
lump of coal in stocking.
No, thanks. All right, so for people, what's that?
Sentang.
Oh, I've got that right here. For Pete Tessier, for Jan Levine, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.